The Great Pyramid of Giza casts a perfect shadow on the spring equinox, a feat that still baffles engineers today. This is not a solitary wonder. From the stone circles of Britain to the jungle temples of Cambodia, ancient builders across the world performed the same impossible trick, locking their greatest monuments into precise alignment with the sun, moon, and stars. This video will give you a new lens to see human history, revealing how the night sky served as the original blueprint for our earliest masterpieces. We are going to unravel why cultures separated by oceans and millennia shared this singular obsession. Were they simply building giant calendars, or were they trying to speak to the gods? By the end, you will look at the stars above not as distant lights, but as the silent architects of our world. What does this universal drive to touch the heavens tell you about us? Standing under a sky unpolluted by artificial light, an ancient observer saw not a scattering of random sparks, but a grand, turning mechanism. The stars wheeled with a perfect, predictable rhythm. The sun marched north and south along the horizon. The moon swelled and thinned on a schedule you could set your life by. For every early civilization, this celestial clockwork was the ultimate source of order in a chaotic world. It told them when to plant, when to harvest, when the rains would come, and when the rivers would flood. It was a calendar, a compass, and a divine script, all written across the dome of the night, all at midday. The sun is symbolically tied or hitched to the earth. It is architecture as ritual, a permanent act of cosmic connection meant to ensure the sun's reliable return, and by extension, the continuation of life itself. It makes you wonder, what are the pillars we build today to mark time and meaning? Our digital calendars and smartphone alerts are flawless in their precision, but they exist in an invisible, intangible realm. Have we lost something by no longer having a stone that tells us with silent, solar certainty that the season has turned? This foundational drive to read the sky was born from the most practical needs imaginable, the need to survive. But once that knowledge was secured, it blossomed into something far more profound. Think of a small community at the end of a long, cold winter. The last of the stored grain is running low and the fields lie dormant. Everyone is watching the horizon, waiting for a sign they cannot create, only witness. Their entire year, their very survival, hinges on knowing the exact right day to plant their seeds. Too early and a late frost kills the seedlings. Too late and the crops will not mature before the next winter. This was the primal, urgent need that first turned human eyes skyward with systematic purpose. The most fundamental reason our ancestors built alignments was not for mystery but for necessity. They were building agricultural calendars in stone. Historians like Clive Ruggles point out that for these early societies, knowing the precise date of the solstice or equinox was not an abstract astronomical exercise. It was the difference between abundance and hardship. By marking the sun's furthest northern and southern reaches on the horizon, they could accurately divide the year, predicting the coming of rains, the migration of herds, and the flooding of rivers. A monument aligned to the sun became a communal, immovable clock that everyone could see and trust. Take Newgrange in Ireland, a massive tomb older than the pyramids. Above its entrance is a narrow opening called a roof box. For just a few minutes at dawn on the winter solstice, and for several days around it, a single, razor-thin beam of sunlight shoots through this roof box. It travels down a long, dark passageway to illuminate the central burial chamber deep within the mound. For a culture deeply tied to the cycles of death and rebirth, this event was profound. It marked the sun's symbolic rebirth, the moment the year turned and the days began to grow longer again, promising the return of life to the land. It was a giant stone calendar announcing with absolute reliability that the darkest time was passing. This pattern repeats across the globe. In ancient Egypt, the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, when it first becomes visible just before dawn after a period of invisibility, coincided almost perfectly with the annual, life-giving flood of the Nile. That celestial event was their new year, their signal to prepare. In the American Southwest at Chaco Canyon, a remarkable artifact known as the Sun Dagger reveals another layer of sophistication. On a high cliff face, 3 large stone slabs are positioned so that slivers of sunlight and shadow fall upon a spiral petroglyph carved into the rock behind them. On the summer solstice, a dagger of light perfectly bisects the center of the spiral. On the spring and autumn equinoxes, a shaft of light touches the smaller spiral to its side. It was a public solar calendar etched into the landscape itself, a way for the entire community to read the seasons directly from the sun's interaction with the stone. It forces a question about our own time. We carry flawless digital calendars in our pockets, synchronized to atomic clocks. We know the date and time down to the nanosecond, yet we are utterly disconnected from the natural rhythms that dictated human life for millennia. We no longer need to watch for Sirius or wait for a shaft of light to pierce a temple, but in gaining that precision, did we lose a tangible connection to the turning of the world? The stone calendars of our ancestors were more than tools. They were a physical covenant with nature, a way of embedding the cosmic order into the very ground they walked on. And once that practical covenant was secured, it inevitably began to glow with something more, transforming from a tool for the body into a bridge for the spirit. That profound connection to the cosmic cycle could not remain purely practical for long. It was destined to become sacred. Picture the high priest of a civilization standing in the deepest, darkest chamber of the grandest temple. The air is thick with incense and anticipation. Outside, the first sliver of dawn is just beginning to bleed across the horizon. He knows that on this one special day, the summer solstice, a miracle is about to happen. As the sun crests the distant hills, a single, brilliant beam of light will spear through the temple's main gateway. It will travel down the long, columned hallway, past towering statues, and finally, after what feels like an eternity, it will pierce the inner sanctum and illuminate the statue of the god itself. In that moment, for the community watching, it is not merely sunlight. It is the deity made physically manifest, entering its house, blessing the land, and renewing its covenant with the people. This was the spiritual imperative behind celestial alignment. Scholar Mircea Eliade called this the concept of the axis mundi, the sacred center. It is the idea that certain places, often marked by a mountain, a tree, or a built structure, serve as a connection point between heaven, earth, and the underworld. By aligning a temple or a pyramid to a celestial event, ancient architects were literally building that axis, creating a permanent ladder between the human and the divine. They were making the cosmos tangible. We see this principle etched in stone across the ancient world. The Karnak temple complex in Egypt is a masterclass in this sacred geometry. Its main axis is precisely oriented so that on the summer solstice, the rising sun would shine directly through its series of gateways, down a long avenue lined with sphinxes, through the great hypostyle hall, and into the innermost sanctuary, bathing the statue of the sun god Amun-Ra in light. The entire 2-kilometer journey of the sun god across the sky was mirrored in stone, a daily ritual performed by the architecture itself. This was not just decoration, it was theology made manifest. Gods were often directly associated with celestial bodies. In Mesoamerica, the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl was intimately linked to the planet Venus. His temples and pyramids, like the Castillo at Chichen Itza, incorporate alignments to Venus's extreme rising and setting points. When the planet appeared in a certain position, it was seen as the god making a pronouncement, and the architecture framed that pronouncement for all to see. Even the magnificent Pantheon in Rome, with its vast coffered dome, centers on a single opening, the oculus. This open eye to the sky frames the passing clouds, the rain, and the track of the sun across the interior floor. It dynamically connects the man-made space to the ever-changing heavens above, a constant reminder of the cosmic order overseeing the empire. It makes you pause. In our world of concrete and glass, where are our axis mundi? Do we have communal spaces designed not just for function, but to deliberately evoke a sense of the transcendent, to frame a piece of the sky and remind us of our place in something larger? For ancient rulers, this sacred connection was not merely spiritual comfort, it was the ultimate source of their authority. If you could prove you commanded the very sunlight to obey your architecture, you demonstrated a power that was literally divine. But this sacred architecture served a purpose far beyond the spiritual. It was also the ultimate political technology. Stand in the plaza before the great temple on the morning of the solstice. The ruler stands atop the pyramid steps, silhouetted against the dawn. As the sun crests the precisely aligned gateway, a shaft of light does not just strike the inner sanctum, it bathes the leader himself, framing him in a corona of solar fire. In that breathtaking moment, for every person gathered, the message is unmistakable. This is not merely a king, this is a figure chosen by the cosmos, a living bridge between the people and the powers that govern the seasons, the harvest, and fate itself. His authority is literally written in light. Archaeologists like Jeremy Sabloff describe this as the theater of power. Monumental astronomy transformed an abstract claim to rule into a visceral, annual spectacle. By embedding celestial order into stone, a ruler demonstrated a unique, God-given mastery over the very forces of nature. It was a way to legitimize political power and cement a unified social order under a single, cosmic narrative. The entire city became a stage for this drama. Look at Teotihuacan, the vast metropolis north of modern-day Mexico City. Its central artery, the Street of the Dead, is not aligned to true north or south, nor to any solar event. Instead, it points directly to the setting point of the Pleiades star cluster on the horizon. For the people of Teotihuacan, the Pleiades held immense significance, marking the beginning of the agricultural cycle and the rainy season. By aligning their entire urban plan to this celestial marker, the city's anonymous rulers were doing something profound. They were claiming that the order of the heavens was mirrored in the order of their city, and by extension, their rule. To live within that alignment was to live under a divinely sanctioned system. Knowledge of the sky was power, closely guarded and strategically displayed. At Chichen Itza, the unusual round tower known as the Caracol, with its narrow slit windows, functioned as a sophisticated observatory. Mayan priest astronomers likely used it to track the complex cycles of Venus. By predicting its appearances and disappearances with precision, the elite could stage public ceremonies announcing the god's movements, demonstrating a knowledge so advanced it seemed supernatural. This was not just science, it was statecraft. The ruler who could summon a god on schedule commanded unquestioned loyalty. This principle echoes through time, even in later empires. The layout of Beijing's Forbidden City, though built centuries after the ancient world, follows the same symbolic logic. Its strict north-south axis aligns with the pole star, the ancient Chinese celestial symbol of the emperor. The Son of Heaven sat at the unmoving center of his realm, just as the pole star stood fixed at the center of the turning heavens. Every courtyard, every gate, reinforced this idea of a central, unwavering authority derived from the cosmos. It makes you reflect on the symbols of power in our own time. Modern governments may not use solstice light shows, but they still employ vast, imposing architecture, synchronized ceremonies, and shared national narratives to foster unity and project authority. The tools have changed, but the human desire to root social order in a story larger than ourselves remains. To perform this celestial theater, however, required more than grand vision. It demanded an almost unimaginable precision. How did builders without modern tools, without even the concept of the telescope, achieve alignment so accurate they still function today? The answer lies not in magic, but in a forgotten sophistication, a patient, generations-long conversation with the sky that we are only beginning to fully appreciate. The sheer precision of these monuments presents its own profound mystery. We must imagine a master builder standing on a barren plateau, tasked with orienting the foundation of a pyramid to true north. He has no laser theodolite, no digital compass, no satellite to guide him. His tools are made of wood, stone, and rope. His reference points are the slow dance of stars and the creeping shadow of a stick in the ground. Yet the result, as with the Great Pyramid of Giza, is an alignment to the cardinal directions with an error of just 3/60ths of a degree. How was such breathtaking accuracy possible with what we would consider primitive technology? The answer lies not in lost super science, but in a kind of patient, cumulative genius we have largely forgotten. It was a science of observation, refined over lifetimes and passed down through generations. The foundational tool was likely the simplest of all, the gnomon. This is just a vertical pole stuck into level ground. By meticulously marking the tip of its shadow at different times of day, an observer could trace a perfect east-west line. The shortest shadow of the day points due north-south, a principle that turns a simple stick into a solar compass. For night work, cultures developed sighting instruments. The ancient Egyptians used a device called a Merkhet, a notched palm rib with a plumb line hanging from it. An astronomer priest would use a pair of these, aligning one with a specific star like Polaris or a star in the Big Dipper as it crossed an imaginary north-south meridian line in the sky. His assistant, standing hundreds of feet away, would then position a second Merkhet until both were sighted on the same star transit. This created a perfectly straight, astronomically true baseline across the desert floor, a line from which every other measurement for the temple or pyramid could begin. In the British Isles, researcher Alexander Thom surveyed hundreds of stone circles and proposed that Neolithic builders used a system of horizon astronomy. They would watch year after year as the sun or moon would rise or set behind a specific notch in a distant hill. By placing a stone marker on their own site that lined up with that distant notch and the celestial event, they created a permanent, landscape-anchored calendar. The process was one of relentless iteration. They would set up rough alignments, then observe them for years, noting the slight errors, and then patiently, laboriously, adjusting the stones by inches until the alignment was perfect. This was science conducted on a generational timescale. One elegant method, known as the Indian circle method, could find east-west with beautiful simplicity. You would draw a circle in the dirt around a central gnomon. As the sun rose, you would mark where the shadow first touched the circle. As the sun set, you would mark where the shadow last touched the circle. By bisecting the angle between those two marks, you found a true east-west line. Water, too, could become a tool. A still, reflective pool could act as a natural mirror to observe the night sky, allowing for precise angular measurements of a star's height above a fixed point. The cumulative knowledge required was immense. To align the Great Pyramid, builders may have tracked the circumpolar stars, those that never set but instead rotate around the north celestial pole. By marking the points where a specific star rose and set on the horizon, and finding the midpoint between them, they could pinpoint true north with astonishing accuracy. It forces a humbling shift in perspective. We often equate technological advancement with complexity, with more gears and brighter screens. But the ancient approach represents a different kind of sophistication, one rooted in deep environmental literacy, meticulous record-keeping, and a collaborative intellect that spanned centuries. They solved a monumental engineering problem not with silicon chips, but with sand, stars, and steadfast observation. This shared technical prowess, however, did not exist in a vacuum. It flowered independently across the globe, from the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Cambodia and the high plains of the Americas. Each culture, looking up at the same sky, found its own unique way to etch that cosmic order into the heart of its civilization. The Sphinx gazes east, its stone eyes fixed on the horizon where the sun rises, perfectly centered between its paws on the spring equinox. This is not a coincidence but a declaration. Ancient Egypt stands as the ultimate case study in weaving the cosmos into the fabric of civilization. Here, architecture was not separate from astronomy or religion. It was the physical expression of both. The entire landscape was a sacred machine designed to facilitate the journey from Earth to the eternal stars. The precision begins with the impossible orientation of the Great Pyramid. Its 4 base sides are aligned to the 4 cardinal directions with an accuracy within a tiny fraction of a degree. This created a perfect square platform, a symbolic representation of the ordered world from which the pharaoh's soul would launch skyward. But the alignments reach much higher. Deep within the pyramid's heart, narrow shafts, often called air shafts, angle upward from the king's and queen's chambers. For decades, their purpose was a mystery. Then, researchers like Virginia Trimble and later Robert Bovell made a stunning calculation. Around 2500 BC, when the pyramid was built, these shafts did not point to random patches of sky. One from the king's chamber aimed directly at the star Al-Nitak, the brightest star in Orion's belt. Another pointed to Thuban, the North Star of that era. This was no ventilation system. Egyptologist Mark Lehner explains that in Egyptian theology, the pharaoh's soul, upon his passing, was believed to ascend to join the circumpolar stars, the so-called imperishable ones that never set. The pyramid, with its smooth, shining casing stones, was a ramp to heaven. Those narrow shafts were precise launch tubes, guiding the royal spirit directly to its celestial destination. This idea blossoms into the controversial but captivating Orion correlation theory. It proposes that the layout of the 3 main Giza pyramids mirrors the pattern of the 3 stars in Orion's belt. Orion was associated with Osiris, the god of death, rebirth, and the afterlife. By duplicating this constellation on the ground, the builders were creating a permanent, earthly copy of the heavenly kingdom, ensuring the pharaoh's rebirth as a star god. Whether one accepts the full theory, the intentional stellar targeting is widely acknowledged. The celestial engineering extended far beyond Giza. At the magnificent temple of Abu Simbel, built by Ramses II over 3,000 years ago, a profound solar alignment was carved into a mountainside. The temple is oriented so that twice a year, around February and October 22nd, the first rays of the rising sun travel over 60 meters through the dark hall. They illuminate the statues of 3 gods seated in the inner sanctuary, and Ramses himself, bathing them in light for several minutes. The 4th statue of Ptah, the god of darkness, remains forever in shadow. This was a deliberate, calendrical miracle in stone, celebrating the king's divine connection and likely marking his coronation and birthday. Modern rediscoveries of these alignments often happened by accident. An archaeologist would be studying a temple floor plan and notice an odd orientation, or an amateur astronomer would be present at dawn on a significant date and witness the light show for themselves. Each discovery sparked fierce debate. Were these alignments intentional masterpieces of archaeoastronomy, or merely symbolic orientations that later looked precise by chance? The overwhelming consensus, especially for sites like Abu Simbel, is intent. The sheer consistency of the evidence points to a society that planned on a timescale we can scarcely comprehend. Building the Great Pyramid likely took 20 years, but planning its celestial integrations required generations of accumulated observational data. What does it say about a culture that would commit centuries of labor not just to a tomb but to a cosmic launch facility? Their priority was not just memorializing a life, but guaranteeing a perpetual journey within the grand machinery of the universe. While Egypt mastered the linear and the cardinal, another ancient culture, gazing at the same stars from a wet and windy landscape, found its sacred geometry in a completely different shape, the circle. The great stones of Stonehenge stand as stark sentinels on the open Salisbury Plain, their haunting silhouette a stark contrast to the fiery dawn of a midsummer sunrise. Every year, thousands gather to witness this precise alignment, a modern pilgrimage to a very ancient moment, while the summer solstice sunrise, framed by the heel stone and the central arch of the Great Trilithon, is the most famous celestial event. Stonehenge is far more than a single solar calendar. It is a complex monument woven into a vast ceremonial landscape, one that speaks to a deep and sophisticated understanding of the sky. The main axis of the site, marked by the avenue leading up to the circle, aligns not only to the summer solstice sunrise in one direction, but to the winter solstice sunset in the opposite. This creates a symbolic balance, tying the monument to both the longest day and the longest night, the zenith and nadir of the solar year. Further out, 4 outlier stones known as the station stones form a rectangle, and their alignments likely track the extreme rising and setting points of the moon during its complex 18.6-year cycle. This suggests the builders were mapping time on a grand, generational scale. Archaeologist Mike Parker Pearson's work has revolutionized our understanding, revealing that Stonehenge was just one part of a vast ritual complex. He proposes it was a domain of the dead, linked by processional avenues to a domain of the living at the nearby settlement of Durrington Walls. Intriguingly, the timber circle at Durrington Walls is aligned to the winter solstice sunrise, the exact opposite of Stonehenge's summer alignment. This creates a powerful cosmic circuit, where the living celebrated the sun's rebirth at midwinter, while the realm of the ancestors was linked to the sun's peak power at midsummer. The sophistication deepens when we consider the 56 mysterious Aubrey holes that circle just inside the Earth bank. Some researchers, like Gerald Hawkins, proposed these could have been used as a primitive astronomical computer. By moving marker stones from hole to hole in a specific pattern, priests might have been able to predict lunar eclipses, events that would have seemed like terrifying omens to the community. The ability to foresee and ritually manage such an event would have been a source of immense power and stability. Even the stones themselves tell a story of sacred geography. The smaller bluestones were transported over 200 miles from the Preseli Hills in Wales, an astonishing feat of Neolithic logistics. This was not a simple quarrying operation. Recent analysis suggests these stones were believed to hold intrinsic power, perhaps because the Preseli Hills were already an ancient sacred site, or because the stones were associated with healing or ancestral spirits. Bringing them to Salisbury Plain was an act of unifying a sacred landscape under the sky's grand design. Recent excavations at Durrington Walls uncovered what appear to be small, timber structures dubbed sun worship houses. Inside, evidence of massive feasting, especially on pork, suggests that at key times like the solstices, hundreds gathered to celebrate, their festivities directly aligned with the solar events. This paints a vivid picture of a society whose entire ritual life, from grand monuments to communal meals, was synchronized with the celestial clock. It makes you wonder what draws modern crowds to stand in that same field at dawn. We no longer depend on that sunrise to tell us when to plant, yet the deep human urge to gather, to witness a cosmic event, and to feel a tangible link to those who stood there millennia before remains powerfully alive. We are still seeking that connection, that moment where the sky touches the earth and time seems to collapse. From the misty, monumental plains of Neolithic Britain, we find a parallel sophistication under the dense canopy of a different continent, where another civilization built cities not of stone, but of stucco and star charts, mapping time itself with terrifying accuracy. Deep in the Yucatan jungle, the equinox sun performs a miracle of stone and shadow. As the sun sets, the northwest corner of the Temple of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza casts a series of triangular shadows down the side of its grand staircase. These shadows connect to massive stone serpent heads at the base, creating the illusion of a giant, undulating feathered serpent slithering down from the heavens to the earth. This was not a happy accident of architecture. It was a precise, calendrical event, a moment where the Mayas' profound astronomical knowledge, their intricate cosmology, and their monumental architecture fused into a single, breathtaking spectacle. For the Maya, time was not a straight line but a sacred, repeating wheel. Their entire civilization was built around tracking its cycles with a precision that rivals our own. They maintained not one but several interlocking calendars. The 260-day sacred calendar, the Tzolk'in, meshed with the 365-day solar calendar, the Hob, to create a 52-year calendar round. Monuments were often dedicated or aligned to mark the completion of these great cycles, anchoring human history to the cosmos. This obsession with celestial time is etched into their cities. The Caracol, a round tower-like structure at Chichen Itza, functions as a sophisticated observatory. Its narrow, strategically placed windows are aligned to the extreme rising and setting points of Venus. The Maya saw Venus not as a planet but as a god, often associated with war and rain. Predicting its appearances with absolute accuracy was a matter of divine statecraft. At Uxmal, the governor's palace is oriented not to a solar event, but to the southernmost rising point of Venus on the horizon, an alignment that occurs only once every 8 years. Scholar Linda Scheel helped reveal that Maya architecture was a physical model of their universe. Pyramids were sacred mountains, doorways were caves leading to the underworld, and plazas were the flat plain of the earthly realm. By aligning these structures to celestial events, they were quite literally building their cosmology, making the movements of the gods visible and predictable. Their knowledge was codified in precious bark paper books like the Dresden Codex. This ancient text contains detailed Venus tables, accurate over a span of centuries, allowing priests to forecast the planet's cycles long into the future. It was a tool for managing cosmic fear. Events like solar eclipses were seen as moments of profound danger when the sun god might be devoured. The ability to predict such an event allowed the elite to stage elaborate rituals of renewal, to placate the gods and demonstrate their control over the very fabric of time. This celestial planning shaped entire cities. At Copan, the layout itself is a sacred diagram. Major structures are aligned not only to solstice sunrises and sunsets, but also to the movements of Venus and the moon, creating an urban grid that mirrored the celestial order. To walk through a Maya city was to navigate a living stone calendar, where every temple corner and palace doorway whispered the schedule of the gods. It prompts a sobering reflection. We live in a culture obsessed with linear progress, always rushing toward the next milestone. The Maya, in their cyclical world, sought not to escape time but to harmonize with its eternal return. Their architecture was a mechanism for that harmony, a way to ensure that the great wheel of the cosmos kept turning. From the humid, glyph-carved jungles of Mesoamerica, this human drive to build with the stars finds perhaps its most dramatic expression in a place of breathtaking altitude and isolation, where stones were cut and fitted with a precision that defies the very tools used to shape them. High in the thin air of the Andes, the stones of Machu Picchu do not simply sit upon the mountain, they converse with it. Terraces follow the contours of the peaks, walls mirror the angles of distant rock faces, and windows frame specific summits on the horizon. For the Inca, architecture was not an imposition on the landscape, but a sacred collaboration with it. This philosophy reached its purest expression in their celestial alignments, which were never isolated feats of engineering. They were part of a vast, invisible web that organized an entire empire, a system known as the Sec. Radiating out from the Coricancha, the golden-clad sun temple at the heart of the capital Cusco, were 41 conceptual lines or secs. Along each line lay a series of sacred places or huacas, which could be a spring, an unusual boulder, a cave, or a built shrine. As scholar Brian Bauer describes, this was not just a religious map, it was a social and calendrical one. Different kin groups were responsible for maintaining the huacas along specific secs, and the sequence of rituals performed at them throughout the year marked the passage of time and the agricultural cycle. The sec system physically embedded the cosmic and social order into the very topography of the Inca realm. At Machu Picchu, this integration is masterful. The Torian, a semicircular temple, contains a carefully carved stone altar and a window that aligns precisely with the rising sun on the June solstice. But the Incan astronomers looked further. Research suggests another alignment from this same window targets the heliacal rising of the Pleiades star cluster, an event that signaled the beginning of the planting season. Across the empire, Ushnu platforms served as elevated stages for both ceremony and observation. A priest would pour libations of chicha, a sacred corn beer, into a channel in the platform, an offering to the earth that was simultaneously an act of aligning ritual with the celestial bodies overhead. This drive to draw the sky down to the earth finds perhaps its most enigmatic expression hundreds of miles to the south, in the Nazca Desert. Though created by a different, earlier culture, the Nazca lines share a similar impulse but on a colossal scale. These vast geoglyphs, lines and shapes etched into the desert floor, are only comprehensible from the air. Many researchers, like Maria Reich, proposed they functioned as a giant astronomical calendar, with certain lines pointing to solstice sunrises or to the rising points of important stars. Whether used for rituals, processions, or celestial mapping, they represent another civilization using the landscape itself as a canvas for cosmic conversation. The Spanish conquistadors understood the power of this integration all too well. In a deliberate act of spiritual conquest, they tore down the Coricancha and built the Church of Santo Domingo directly atop its flawless stone foundations. They sought to overwrite one cosmic order with another, to bury the sec lines under the grid of a European city. It makes you wonder, in our modern world of steel and concrete, what have we overwritten? Our cities are designed for efficiency, not for dialogue with the sun or the stars. Could we design spaces that, like the Inca, honor the natural contours and celestial rhythms, not just dominate them? Having traced this profound thread through the great civilizations of the world, a consistent picture emerges of deep, practical knowledge elevated into sacred art. Yet for some, this explanation feels incomplete. It does not account for the staggering precision, the shared patterns across impossible distances, or the sheer ambition of it all. This is where the narrative takes a turn, venturing into the realm of controversial theories that challenge the very timeline of human achievement. The line between wonder and speculation is a fine one, drawn across the desert sands of Giza and the jungles of South America. While mainstream archaeology sees the meticulous work of generations, another narrative has captured the popular imagination for decades, one that looks to the stars not for inspiration but for architects. This is the ancient astronaut hypothesis, the controversial idea that our ancestors received a helping hand from extraterrestrial visitors. Proponents like Erich von Däniken argue that the precision, scale, and shared celestial focus of these monuments are simply too advanced for the people of their time. How could cultures without the wheel or modern mathematics align pyramids to true north within a fraction of a degree? How could they move 100-ton stones and achieve cuts so clean they seem machined? For some, the most satisfying answer is that they did not do it alone, that advanced beings provided the knowledge or technology. This theory thrives on the gaps in our understanding, filling them with a compelling science fiction narrative. It points to the mysterious, interlocking stonework at sites like Picchu in Bolivia, where blocks fit together with uncanny geometric precision, and asks if such craftsmanship was possible with simple bronze tools. It resurrects the idea that the three pyramids of Giza are a perfect mirror of the three stars of Orion's belt, a celestial map imposed by star travelers. The emotional core of the argument is powerful. It suggests our history is part of a grand interstellar story, and that these silent stones are beacons left by our cosmic ancestors. Yet when subjected to critical scrutiny, this narrative begins to unravel. Mainstream archaeologists and historians offer a firm rebuttal. Scholars like Kenneth Feder point out that the hypothesis often relies on logical fallacies, primarily the argument from personal incredulity or the argument from ignorance. This is the idea that because we cannot immediately conceive of how ancient people accomplished something, or because our current records are incomplete, the only possible explanation must be an external, supernatural, or extraterrestrial one. It is a perspective that, however unintentionally, diminishes the profound ingenuity of our forebears. Take the specific claim about the Giza pyramids and Orion's belt. While the correlation is visually intriguing, it is not a perfect match. The relative positions and spacing of the stars do not align precisely with the ground layout when the pyramids were built. It is a suggestive pattern, but not a precise blueprint. The astonishing stonework at Picchu, rather than proving the need for alien lasers, demonstrates a masterful, patient understanding of stone fracture points and abrasive techniques using sand, water, and harder stones, a technology well within the reach of the Teotihuacan culture. Perhaps the most telling case is that of the Antikythera Mechanism, the ancient Greek device recovered from a shipwreck. For years, its complex geared mechanism predicting planetary movements was cited by some as evidence of an out-of-place technology, far too advanced for its era. Decades of painstaking research, however, have revealed it to be the pinnacle of Hellenistic astronomical engineering, a testament to the cumulative knowledge of Greek, Babylonian, and Egyptian science. It was not proof of visitors, but of a lost thread of human technological achievement. This is the critical counterpoint. Ancient humans were not primitive or unobservant. They were brilliant engineers, astronomers, and artists who worked on timescales we struggle to comprehend, passing refined knowledge from master to apprentice for centuries. The appeal of the ancient astronaut theory may reveal more about us than about them. In a modern age of rapid technological leaps, do we underestimate the power of slow, cumulative observation over generations? Does the idea of a forgotten human genius feel less thrilling than the possibility of cosmic contact? By dismissing their work as impossible for humans, we risk missing the true marvel, which is that they did it with nothing but their minds, their hands, and a deep, reverent connection to the sky above them. This grounding in human capability opens the door to a different kind of mystery, one not about visitors from the stars, but about civilizations that may have risen, achieved greatness, and vanished long before our recorded history began, leaving only their sky-aligned stones as a cryptic message. There is another grand narrative that seeks to explain the global echoes in stone, one that does not look to the stars for visitors, but to a forgotten chapter of our own human story. This is the romantic and controversial idea of a lost progenitor civilization, a sophisticated global culture like the legendary Atlantis that mastered the heavens long before the pyramids were a dream. According to this theory, the consistent alignments we see from Egypt to Peru are not independent discoveries, but a shared inheritance, fragments of a sophisticated astronomical science preserved by the survivors of a world-shattering cataclysm. Writers like Graham Hancock have popularized the idea of a cataclysmic reset around 12,000 years ago, possibly linked to a comet impact or rapid climate change at the end of the last ice age, which wiped this advanced culture from the map. Its scattered survivors, the theory goes, became the revered teacher gods of later mythologies, seeding the knowledge of the stars and stone that would blossom into the civilizations we know. The evidence presented often points to a mysterious web, a so-called world grid of ley lines connecting sacred sites across the globe. Proponents map out great circles and geometric patterns, showing how the Great Pyramid, Stonehenge, Easter Island, and other power points align along these invisible lines, suggesting a single, ancient master plan. The underwater formations near Yonaguni, Japan, with their stark, stepped terraces, are presented as the sunken ruins of this lost world, a city drowned by rising seas. It is a powerfully alluring vision, a story of a golden age from which we fell, carrying with it the haunting question of our own fragility. Yet when examined by the tools of geology and archaeology, this grand edifice faces serious challenges. Mainstream scholars point to a profound lack of concrete evidence. For a global maritime civilization capable of such feats, where is the submerged infrastructure, the consistent artifact styles across continents, or the evidence of advanced technology in the deep archaeological record? Geologists who have studied the Yonaguni monument conclude its striking formations are most likely natural, created by the fracturing and erosion of sandstone bedrock along existing plains, a process known as sheet jointing. While the human eye is excellent at seeing patterns, especially faces and structures in random shapes, the scientific consensus is that nature, not a lost civilization, carved those underwater cliffs. The statistical argument for the world grid also comes under scrutiny. With thousands of significant ancient sites dotting the globe, drawing straight lines between a selective few will inevitably create seeming patterns. It is a bit like connecting stars to form constellations. The pattern is imposed by the observer, not inherent in the stars themselves. The real test is whether these alignments hold up against a random distribution of sites, and most analyses suggest they do not. This debate finds a fascinating focal point at Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Dated to around 9600 BC, this site is a genuine game-changer. Its massive T-shaped pillars, intricately carved with animals and symbols, were erected by hunter-gatherers a staggering 6,000 years before Stonehenge. It utterly shatters the old timeline that said monumental architecture required settled, agricultural societies. Some of its enclosures do appear to have astronomical orientations, potentially marking stars like Sirius. For proponents of the lost civilization theory, Göbekli Tepe is a smoking gun, proof of sophisticated knowledge at a time when mainstream history says none should exist. For mainstream archaeologists, however, it is proof of something equally profound: the incredible and previously underestimated capacity of early human societies. It demonstrates that monumentality and celestial observation could arise independently, born from complex social and ritual needs, without requiring a teacher from a lost advanced culture. Göbekli Tepe challenges our assumptions, but it does not, in itself, prove a global Atlantis. This tension forces a vital reflection on how we build history. What truly constitutes evidence? Is it the compelling pattern that feels true, or the painstakingly excavated artifact that fits a slower, more complex story? The allure of the lost civilization speaks to a deep human longing for a simpler narrative, a single point of origin for human genius. The messier, more gradual reality revealed by archaeology is perhaps less romantic, but in its own way more awe-inspiring. It suggests that the drive to build in harmony with the cosmos is not a borrowed secret, but a fundamental human impulse that has sparked independently and brilliantly across the span of our species. Whether inherited or independently discovered, this knowledge was never just about plotting stars on stone. It was about encoding a complete worldview, a symbolic language where light, shadow, and stone formed the very grammar of belief. Architecture became a permanent public text written in sunlight and shadow. In a world without widespread literacy, the movement of light across a temple facade told a story every member of the community could read. This was the deeper purpose of many celestial alignments. They were not just observations, but a powerful form of symbolic communication. Anthropologist Clifford Geertz described culture as a web of meaning that people themselves have spun. Within that web, symbols like these solar events act as both a model of reality, reflecting how the world is seen to work, and a model for reality, instructing people on how to live within it. The alignment was the grammar of this language. Consider the descent of the feathered serpent at Chichen Itza. For most of the year, the pyramid is a silent monument. But on the equinox, the play of light and stone transforms it into a living narrative. The undulating shadow of Kukulkan slithering down the steps was not a secret priestly observation, it was a public spectacle. It visually enacted the myth of the gods' arrival from the heavens to bless the earth, uniting every witness in a shared, visceral experience of their cosmology. This symbolic language took many forms. In Egyptian temples, hieroglyphs were not just carved, they were animated. At certain temples, the rising sun would send a beam of light that traveled across the wall, illuminating specific cartouches or godly images in a predetermined sequence, as if the sun itself were reading the sacred text aloud. At Chaco Canyon, the sun dagger petroglyph functioned similarly. That sliver of light bisecting the spiral was not merely a calendar mark, it was a cosmic pointer. On the solstice, the community gathered would see the sun's power literally strike the center of their symbolic world, a dramatic confirmation that the ceremony they were conducting was in harmony with the universe. A particularly poignant example lies in a Welsh field at Bryn Celyn. This Neolithic passage tomb is oriented so that on the dawn of the summer solstice, a single shaft of sunlight travels down the long, narrow entrance passage. For a few minutes, it illuminates a single, intricately patterned stone pillar deep inside the otherwise dark chamber. It is a moment of revelation, where hidden meaning is literally brought to light once a year, connecting the living community outside with the ancestral realm within through a beam of solar significance. This prompts a quiet question about our own environment. What are the public symbols in our cities that we all understand? A clock tower communicates the value of punctuality and shared time. A courthouse's steps speak of accessible justice. The open space of a main square invites community gathering. These are our modern alignments, not to the sun, but to social ideals. They form a silent text about what we hold important. In ancient times, this symbolic language was potent precisely because its full complexity was often guarded. The ability to predict when the sun dagger would strike, or to design the pyramid to cast the serpent shadow, represented elite knowledge. This created a sacred mystery, a cosmic code that reinforced social hierarchy. The priests and rulers who held the keys to this language wielded immense influence, mediating between the people and the profound patterns of the sky. The mastery of the sky was not a public science but a closely guarded art. Within the secluded chambers of temple schools, far from the bustling crowds, a select few underwent a lifelong initiation. Under the watchful eye of a master astronomer priest, young initiates would memorize the complex cycles of stars, the shifting angles of the sun, and the sacred geometry that translated celestial motion into architectural plans. This knowledge was the ultimate source of authority, a monopoly that created an unbreakable bond between the elite and the cosmos itself. These keepers of knowledge formed a specialized class, the human bridge between the divine clockwork above and the social order below. Historical accounts, like those describing the Babylonian Chaldeans, portray them as revered advisors to kings, interpreters of celestial omens who could declare the most auspicious days for war, coronation, or temple construction. To predict a planetary alignment was to announce the will of the gods, a power that shaped the fate of empires. This transmission of knowledge was intimate and exclusive. It flowed orally from master to apprentice across generations. Complex astronomical data and alignment formulas were memorized through song, story, and ritual, woven into the very fabric of cultural identity. In the Andes, the Inca used the quipu, a system of knotted strings, which some researchers believe could encode not just inventory, but narrative and calendrical information, a tactile database for the initiated. Among the Maya, the Ajor, or Holy Lord, embodied this fusion perfectly. He was not just a political ruler, but the central axis of the cosmos, his very actions designed to maintain celestial harmony. His accession rituals were timed to planetary cycles, and his wars were launched under auspicious stars. In Egypt, the lector priests were the technicians of the sacred. They performed the star-based rituals that guided the pharaoh's soul to the imperishable stars, using instruments like the Merkhet to lay out temple foundations with celestial precision. Their knowledge was so potent it was considered a form of magic, the ability to make the sky obey. The political impact of this guarded wisdom is starkly illustrated by a story from ancient Greece. The philosopher Thales of Miletus, having studied Babylonian astronomical records, is said to have predicted a solar eclipse in 585 BC. When the day arrived and the sun indeed vanished in the middle of a battle between the Lydians and the Medes, the stunned armies laid down their arms and made peace. Whether perfectly historical or not, the tale captures a universal truth that the one who could foresee the sky's behavior held a power that could stop wars. This makes us reflect on our own era. Who are the keepers of knowledge today? Our high priests are the data scientists, the algorithm engineers, the central bankers who interpret complex models invisible to the public. Access to information and the ability to predict trends from it still confers immense social and political power. The medium has changed from stone and star charts to servers and code, but the fundamental dynamic, the link between specialized knowledge and authority, remains deeply human. Yet this profound celestial knowledge, locked in the minds of a select few, faced its greatest test not in the scroll or the song, but in the physical world. The final and most audacious step was to translate these perfect cosmic equations into mountains of stone, to make the sky's intangible order permanent and undeniable. The final translation of celestial knowledge into stone was an act of staggering physical ambition. Think of the sound, a low, grinding thunder echoing across the plateau as a limestone block weighing more than 2 elephants is inched forward on a slickened path of mud. This was the reality behind the cosmic blueprint, a logistical puzzle of almost unimaginable scale. To align a pyramid to true north within a fraction of a degree is one thing. To do it while quarrying, moving, and stacking 2.3 million such blocks over 20 years is a feat that still leaves modern civil engineers in awe. It required a society that could feed, house, and organize tens of thousands of workers not as slaves under a whip, as old myths suggested, but as a rotating, skilled labor force, a national project that unified the country. The first and most critical step was laying the foundation square. After clearing the bedrock, engineers likely used the simple gnomon and circle method to establish a perfect east-west line. They would then use that baseline to construct a right angle, perhaps with a knotted rope in a 3-4-5 triangle ratio, a principle known even then. This created the sacred square, the symbolic plane of the ordered earth. but keeping that orientation true as the pyramid rose was the real challenge. Egyptologist Mark Lehner's work at Giza suggests they constantly checked their work against the stars. As each course of stone was laid, priests would likely observe the transits of circumpolar stars across predetermined sight lines, using simple plumb bobs and alidade sighting bars to ensure the growing edges remained parallel to the celestial poles. For horizontality, they mastered the water level, a trench filled with water that gives a perfectly flat reference plane across vast distances. The stones themselves were dragged from nearby quarries on wooden sledges. Experiments have shown that wetting the sand or clay in front of the sledge dramatically reduces friction, making it possible for a large team to move colossal weights. Ramps, whether straight, zigzagging, or spiraling around the structure, provided the inclined plane. It was a symphony of simple machines, levers, rollers, and sheer human coordination, all in service of an idea written in the sky. This determination is mirrored an ocean away in the story of Stonehenge's bluestones. Geologists have traced their origin to the Preseli Hills in Wales, over 150 miles away. How did Neolithic people without the wheel or draft animals transport 84 stones, each weighing up to 4 tons, across rivers, mountains, and sea? The leading theory involves a combination of land and water transport. They may have used a system of wooden rollers and sledges to haul the stones to the Welsh coast, then loaded them onto rafts or lashed them between dugout canoes to sail along the coast and up rivers before the final overland haul to Salisbury Plain. The sheer effort spanning generations tells us this was not a casual undertaking. The bluestones were not just building material, they were sacred objects, and their journey was a pilgrimage etched into the landscape itself. It forces a comparison to our own megaprojects. We build skyscrapers that pierce the clouds and particle accelerators that unravel the fabric of reality. Our tools are cranes and computers, not sledges and ropes, but the scale of communal commitment, the marshalling of a society's resources toward a single, visionary goal, is a thread that connects us to those ancient builders. They invested lifetimes to touch the heavens. We invest billions to understand the atom. Both endeavors ask a fundamental question: what is a society willing to build when it believes in something greater than itself? Once these celestial machines were complete, they did not sit silent. They pulsed with life, marking the rhythms of the community in a daily dialogue of light and shadow. The grand solstice alignment was not a silent spectacle for priests alone. It was the opening act for the entire community, a signal that echoed through the streets and fields. These celestial monuments were not isolated. They were the beating heart of a society whose daily rhythms, from the harvest to the market to the festival, were choreographed by the sun and stars. This was public astronomy, where architecture created shared moments that wove the cosmos into the very fabric of cultural life. We can glimpse this intimate integration through the practices of modern indigenous cultures who maintain ancestral traditions. For the Hopi people of the American Southwest, the observation of the sun's position on the horizon from specific points on the mesa top still dictates the ceremonial calendar, telling them when to plant certain seeds or when to hold the sacred Kachina dances. This is not abstract knowledge, it is a living dialogue with the sky that structures the year. It helps us imagine the past not as a silent ruin, but as a vibrant, scheduled world. At its most spectacular, this integration became grand civic theater. During the Inca festival of Inti Raymi, held at the winter solstice in June, the ruling Sopa Inca would preside over elaborate ceremonies at the Coricancha in Cusco. He would symbolically capture the sun, tying it to a sacred stone to prevent its further retreat, and then light a new sacred fire. The entire city participated in processions, feasts, and sacrifices, all reaffirming the social order and the Inca's divine role as the sun's intermediary. The architecture provided the stage, and the celestial event provided the immutable cue, but the sky's schedule governed far more than annual festivals. A city gate precisely aligned to the equinox sunrise might serve as a communal timekeeper, its illumination signaling the official opening of the daily market. In ancient Mesopotamia, the appearance of certain stars could mark the start of the fiscal year and the time for settling debts. A shadow creeping across a plaza to touch a specific stone could indicate the hour for a public assembly or the collection of tribute. The Roman mundus, a ritual pit in the city center believed to be a portal to the underworld, was ceremonially opened only on 3 specific days of the year. Dates scholars believe were tied to the agricultural cycle and likely aligned with celestial events like the end of the harvest season. These were the mundane, vital pulses of society, all synchronized to the cosmic clock. It makes you reflect on the rhythms of your own life. What are the signals that structure our communal days now? The morning alarm, the 9 to 5 work schedule, the weekend, the chiming of a digital notification. Our time is precise and personal, emanating from devices in our pockets rather than from a shared observation of the horizon. We have gained incredible individual control, but perhaps we have lost a certain communal poetry, the collective anticipation of a shadow's arrival or a sunrise through a gate that united an entire city in a single, tangible moment. This deep view of societal integration, however, leads us to a pivotal and honest question that every researcher must confront. When we look at these ancient sites with our modern minds, armed with precise GPS and astronomical software, how much of the alignment we see was a conscious, intended masterpiece by the builders, and how much is simply our own brain's powerful tendency to find patterns, even where none were originally placed? This is the critical challenge of distinguishing sacred geometry from coincidence, a line that has sparked some of the most heated debates in archaeology. The challenge of proving intent lies at the very heart of this mystery. In a quiet university lecture hall, 2 researchers lean over a detailed site plan, their debate a microcosm of a larger academic struggle. One points emphatically to a line connecting a temple doorway to a distant mountain notch where the sun rises on the equinox, seeing clear, purposeful design. The other shakes their head, arguing that with thousands of ancient structures scattered across the globe, a certain number are bound to point toward significant celestial directions purely by random chance. This is the fundamental tension in archaeoastronomy, the scientific study of ancient astronomy. How do we distinguish a sacred blueprint from a fortunate accident? Skeptical archaeologists like Keith Kintig warn of a trap called selective reporting, where only the sites that confirm a desired alignment are highlighted, while the many that do not are quietly ignored. To move beyond speculation, researchers have developed rigorous methods. They begin with a comprehensive survey, mapping not just one suspected alignment, but every major orientation of a structure, its doorways, windows, and central axes. They then apply statistical tests to see if the clustering of these orientations around certain celestial directions, like the solstice sunrise, is significant or could easily arise by random chance. The most compelling cases offer multiple lines of evidence. A single alignment might be suggestive, but a temple with several architectural features all targeting different points in the same celestial cycle, supported by local myths or artifacts depicting sun worship, builds a far stronger argument for intentionality. The Egyptian pyramids present a powerful case for design. It is not just the Great Pyramid of Giza that is cardinally aligned. Dozens of pyramids across Egypt show the same precise orientation to the north-south axis, a consistency across time and space that overwhelmingly points to a shared, deliberate tradition. This stands in stark contrast to an isolated stone in a field that happens to line up with a star, which could very well be a product of chance. The debate often turns on the precision of measurement. A famous example comes from the Barnenes Mound in France, a massive Neolithic tomb. Initial studies claimed its entrance was aligned to the winter solstice sunrise, a tantalizing discovery. Later, more precise surveys and recalculations of the ancient horizon showed the alignment was off by a meaningful margin, casting doubt on the original interpretation. It was a reminder that the Earth's tilt and local topography change subtly over millennia, and what looks aligned today may not have been so in the past. This forces a moment of self-reflection. We are, as a species, profoundly wired to find patterns and assign meaning. We see faces in clouds and constellations in random star fields. This same cognitive drive draws lines between stones and stars, sometimes revealing profound ancient wisdom, and other times projecting our own desire for order onto the past. How do we temper our wonder with disciplined scrutiny? The answer lies in the evolution of the field itself, a journey from romantic speculation to a hard-earned science that listens carefully to what the stones are actually trying to say. The 19th century antiquarian, armed with little more than a theodolite and a notebook, stood at the edge of a new frontier. Sir Norman Lockyer, better known as an astronomer who discovered helium in the sun, turned his gaze from the stars to the stones. At sites like Stonehenge and Egyptian temples, he began taking precise measurements of alignments, treating ancient monuments not as mystical relics but as potential data points. This marked a quiet revolution, the birth of a scientific approach to the ancient sky. Yet for decades, the field remained a curious hybrid, caught between romantic speculation and a desire for hard proof. The true transformation into a modern discipline, archaeoastronomy, required a convergence of tools and a fundamental shift in thinking. That shift arrived in the 1960s with the work of astronomer Gerald Hawkins. Using an early IBM computer, Hawkins analyzed hundreds of potential alignments at Stonehenge. His controversial conclusion, published in the journal Nature, was that the monument functioned as a sophisticated astronomical computer capable of predicting lunar eclipses. While his specific methods and interpretations were fiercely debated, Hawkins achieved something crucial. He forced the academic world to take the idea of intentional astronomical design seriously. It was no longer the domain of fringe theorists. It was a hypothesis that could be tested with data and technology. This sparked both excitement and a necessary backlash, pushing researchers to develop more rigorous, culturally sensitive methodologies. The formation of the International Society for Archaeoastronomy and Astronomy in Culture, often called ISAC, in the 1990s provided a formal home for this evolving discipline. It brought together archaeologists, astronomers, anthropologists, and historians, recognizing that a stone alignment is meaningless without understanding the people who built it. Pioneers like Anthony Aveny championed this holistic view. He argued that the goal is not simply to find alignments, but to practice what he called thinking through the sky. This means seeing the celestial landscape as the ancients saw it, a source of myth, calendar, and social order. An alignment is not just an engineering feat, it is a cultural statement, a piece of a society's worldview frozen in architecture. Modern technology has given this pursuit extraordinary precision. Gone are the theodolite and notebook, replaced by three-dimensional laser scanners that can map a monument down to the millimeter. Satellite imagery reveals vast landscape patterns invisible from the ground. Most powerfully, sophisticated software can now recreate the ancient night sky with perfect accuracy, accounting for the slow wobble of the Earth's axis over millennia. Researchers can stand at a temple doorway on a computer screen and watch the virtual sun rise on a specific date in 1500 BC, testing alignment hypotheses with a certainty Lockyer could only dream of. This digital toolkit allows us to move beyond guesswork into the realm of demonstrable, repeatable experiment. This technological power is beautifully illustrated at the Mnajdra temple complex in Malta, a site older than the pyramids. For years, its solstice alignments were known. But recent high-resolution scans and digital modeling have revealed a far more complex picture. The temples appear to be precisely oriented to track not just the sun, but also the extreme rising and setting points of the moon during its 18.6-year cycle. This suggests a lunar calendar of remarkable sophistication, woven into the very fabric of the stone by a society about which we know very little. The stones, silent for millennia, are beginning to speak a more detailed language through the lens of modern science. Equally vital to the modern approach is cultural astronomy, the study of the sky knowledge of living indigenous and traditional communities. By learning from the Hopi farmer who reads the planting calendar from the sun's position on the mesa, or the Polynesian navigator who still sails by the stars, researchers gain invaluable analogies for interpreting the past. This ethnographic work reminds us that astronomical knowledge is not just about observation. It is embedded in story, ceremony, and daily practice. It provides a living context for the silent stones, helping to answer the why behind the precise how. How does this revolution in understanding change our view of history? It allows us to re-examine famous sites with fresh eyes and, more thrillingly, to discover entirely new ones. Sometimes a LiDAR scan from an airplane stripping away the jungle canopy will reveal a perfectly oriented ceremonial complex never documented before. Other times, a statistical analysis of hundreds of temple orientations across a region will reveal a shared astronomical tradition that no single site could prove alone. Each discovery is a piece of a vast global puzzle, showing us a humanity deeply and creatively engaged with the cosmos. With every technological advance, we gain a clearer window into the minds of the builders, not as primitive stargazers, but as ingenious philosophers of time and space, who used the only permanent reference they had, the turning sky, to build a meaningful world upon the earth. The glow of a computer screen illuminates a quiet lab long after midnight. A researcher adjusts a digital model of a temple ruin, its stones reconstructed pixel by pixel. With a click, she rolls back the virtual sky by 3,000 years, and a stunning line appears, a perfect vector from the central altar to the precise spot where the Pleiades star cluster would have risen. This is the new frontier of discovery, not in the field with a trowel, but at the desk with data. Modern technology is acting like a universal translator for the ancient world, revealing celestial patterns our eyes could never see and connections that were lost beneath the jungle or the sand. LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging, has been a revolutionary force. Mounted on aircraft, it fires millions of laser pulses through dense forest canopies. By measuring the time it takes for the light to bounce back, it creates a three-dimensional map of the ground surface, stripping away the vegetation to reveal the ghostly footprints of ancient cities. In Cambodia, a massive LiDAR survey over Angkor Wat and its surrounding jungle unveiled a metropolis far grander than anyone imagined. It showed that the entire urban plan, with its vast reservoirs and temple complexes, was a precise terrestrial model of the Hindu cosmos, meticulously aligned to the cardinal directions and designed to mirror celestial order on Earth. What looked like isolated temples were actually nodes in a vast, astronomically oriented grid. On other continents, ground-penetrating radar peers into the Earth without disturbing a single stone, revealing buried foundations and hidden chambers that redefine a site's purpose. From this data, researchers can rebuild structures in virtual space and test alignment hypotheses with absolute precision. They have discovered that the monumental stone towers of Great Zimbabwe in Africa are oriented to the rising of specific stars important in Shona cosmology. They have confirmed that the Greek temple of Apollo at Delphi, home of the famous oracle, is not haphazardly placed, but deliberately oriented toward the constellation Lyra, which was associated with the myth of Orpheus and divine music. High-resolution drone photography now maps vast landscape alignments, showing how the Nazca lines in Peru interact with solar directions on the horizon, turning the entire desert into a participatory calendar. One of the most elegant examples of this digital archaeology comes from Chaco Canyon. The Great Kiva, known as Casa Rinconada, is a large, circular, subterranean ceremonial chamber. For years, its simple geometry seemed straightforward, but advanced software modeling of its precise dimensions, its niches, and its single doorway revealed a sophisticated lunar observatory. The geometry aligns with the complex 18.6-year cycle of the Moon, specifically tracking the lunar standstill when the Moon reaches its most extreme northern and southern rising points. This was not a public solar clock, but a more esoteric priestly tool for tracking a longer, more subtle celestial rhythm. These tools have given rise to what some call archaeological discovery from the desk. A scholar can now analyze the orientation of hundreds of temples across a region statistically, identifying a shared astronomical tradition that no single site could conclusively prove. It allows for a humility we previously lacked. We can now prove when an alignment is statistically significant and intentional, and when it might truly be a product of chance. This technology is quietly rewriting chapters of human history, revealing a planet-wide tapestry of sky watching that was far more intricate and interconnected than we ever knew. It forces a thrilling and somewhat haunting reflection. If we are finding such profound complexity in sites we have studied for centuries, how much history remains encoded in stone, waiting for the next generation of technology to decipher its message? Every laser scan and satellite image is like a new lens, bringing a blurry past into sharp, celestial focus. Yet for all these brilliant rediscoveries, there is a parallel and poignant truth. With every alignment we confirm through science, we are also reminded of a profound cultural loss, a severing of the living thread that once connected these stones directly to the people who understood their language. The final transmission of a world's knowledge can happen in a single, quiet conversation. In the fading light of the 19th century, a European scholar sat with the last elder of a coastal tribe, frantically writing down the stories behind the great stone circles that dotted their land. The elder spoke of ancestors who walked with the stars, of ceremonies timed to the moon's breath, of stones that were not monuments but teachers. When the elder passed, that intricate web of meaning, passed down orally for 1,000 generations, passed with him. The stones remained, but their voice was silenced forever. This is the profound tragedy of cultural amnesia, the great forgetting that has severed our connection to the minds behind the alignments. Conquest, forced assimilation, and the simple, relentless passage of time have erased the living context for countless sites. We are left with the magnificent hardware of ancient genius, but the operating system, the software of stories and specific intent, is often lost. Historian of science David Pingree documented how the rise of centralized monotheistic empires often involved the deliberate suppression of local pagan and indigenous astronomical practices. Star lore was branded as superstition, temple schools were closed, and the keepers of the old knowledge were sidelined or silenced. The transmission was broken. Consider the sprawling fields of Karnak in Brittany, France, where over 3,000 standing stones march in eerie rows across the landscape. We can measure their alignments to solstice sunrises and lunar extremes. We can map their staggering geometry. But the specific stories they were meant to enact, the names of the gods or ancestors they honored, the precise community calendar they enforced, all of that is gone. The stones are a breathtaking question mark. In North America, the great earthworks of the Hopewell and Mississippian cultures, massive geometric shapes and animal effigies built from soil, clearly tracked solar and lunar cycles. But the full complexity of their calendrical system, how it governed not just agriculture but social hierarchy and trade across the continent, faded as those societies transformed and dispersed long before European contact. Even the stars themselves have been renamed. The constellation we call Orion was the celestial hunter to the Greeks, but to the ancient Egyptians it was Sa, the soul of Osiris. To the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, those same stars might form a canoe or a group of hunters. When we lose the original star names and their associated myths, we lose the key to understanding why a temple doorway was aligned to that specific patch of dark sky. This loss is absolute because so much of this knowledge lived in the intangible realm of oral tradition. It was in the song that charted the star paths, the dance that mimicked the sun's journey, the story told at a specific season beside a specific stone. Without that living breath, the alignment becomes a sterile fact, a vector on a map stripped of its poetry and its power. We see a poignant echo of this longing in the modern Druidic gatherings at Stonehenge during the solstices. These are sincere, meaningful expressions of spirituality and connection, but they are creative reinterpretations, a new software written for very old hardware. The original Neolithic code is irretrievable. This forces a sobering look forward. What crucial knowledge from our own era might seem obvious to us but become incomprehensible to a future civilization? The logic behind our digital networks, the cultural context of our greatest films or novels, the nuanced skills of traditional crafts all are vulnerable if we do not consciously work to preserve not just objects, but the intangible heritage of meaning that brings them to life. Yet from this profound silence, a legacy did manage to whisper through the centuries. The principles of those ancient sky watchers, the desire to harmonize human space with cosmic order, never completely vanished. They were translated, adapted, and woven into the fabric of later worlds. The principles of those ancient sky watchers never truly vanished. They simply found new forms, their sacred geometry translated into the stone and glass of a new world. Walk into a vast Gothic cathedral on the morning of its patron saint's day. As the sun crests the horizon precisely to the east, its rays pierce the intricate stained glass windows, flooding the nave with a cascade of colored light that illuminates the altar in a spectacle of divine theater. This is not an accident of architecture. It is the direct intellectual descendant of Karnak and Stonehenge, medieval builders inheriting fragments of classical astronomical knowledge, deliberately aligned their churches to the east, a practice so fundamental it gave us the word orientation itself. The rising sun, symbolizing the resurrection of Christ, became the ultimate sacred direction, its light a daily reenactment of hope and renewal. Architectural historian Nigel Hiscock notes that the layout of these cathedrals often encoded celestial knowledge, with proportions and alignments reflecting a medieval understanding of cosmic harmony. Even the great obelisk at the center of St. Peter's Square in Rome, an ancient Egyptian solar symbol, was repositioned in the 16th century to function as the gnomon of a giant sundial, its shadow marking the days and seasons for the heart of Christendom. This celestial thread wove itself into the very fabric of modern statecraft. When Pierre L'Enfant designed the street plan for Washington, D.C., he embedded a layer of cosmic and Masonic symbolism drawn from Enlightenment ideals. The city's primary axes do not align to the cardinal directions, but create a symbolic geometry. The west-facing orientation of the United States Capitol building, for instance, places the setting sun behind it when viewed from the National Mall, often bathing the dome in a heroic glow during evening ceremonies. The alignment of the White House and the Jefferson Memorial to the North Star, Polaris, was a deliberate nod to the ideals of unwavering guidance and permanence. This was architecture as civic religion, using the ancient language of alignment to root a new nation's ideals in the perceived eternal order of the cosmos. The tradition persisted into the 20th century with both sacred and secular purpose. New York's Cathedral of St. John the Divine, though unfinished, includes a modern stained glass window designed so that the sun aligns to illuminate it on the summer solstice. The United Nations headquarters in New York is meticulously oriented so that the sun shines directly down the axis of the General Assembly building on the spring equinox, a symbol of global unity under a shared sun. A poignant and powerful example emerged in the 20th century in Banská Bystrica, Slovakia. There, the national memorial to the anti-Nazi uprising was designed so that on the anniversary of the event, a beam of sunlight passes through a keyhole in the monument to illuminate a single, symbolic crystal heart. The designers consciously reached back to the most ancient human practice, using solar alignment to create a moment of annual, living memory, connecting collective loss to the perpetual cycle of light. Why does this symbolism of light and precise alignment remain so potent, even in our electrically illuminated world? Perhaps because architecture that aspires to convey ideals, permanence, or sacredness still seeks a foundation beyond the fleeting human moment. Aligning a building to the sun or stars roots it in a timescale that dwarfs our own, connecting human aspiration to the slow, sure turn of the planet. It transforms a structure from a mere shelter into a participant in a cosmic dialogue, a marker that says, we built this not just for ourselves, but in harmony with the universe as we understand it. This enduring legacy, however, now faces a paradoxical threat. The very canvas upon which these ancient alignments were drawn, the dark, star-filled night sky, is rapidly disappearing. Our modern world, which still builds with symbolic light, is simultaneously erasing the primordial darkness that gave that light its meaning. The fight to preserve dark skies is, in a profound sense, a fight to preserve the context for humanity's oldest and most universal art form. The time lapse is devastating, a silent film of loss. Over an ancient observatory, the brilliant river of the Milky Way glows for a moment, then fades, washed away by the relentless orange glow of a distant city sprawl. This is not a special effect, it is our new reality. The very canvas upon which our ancestors painted their greatest works, the dark night sky, is being erased. We call it light pollution, but it is more accurately a form of cultural amnesia, actively severing our last living link to the celestial knowledge that built the world. Today, over 80% of humanity lives under skies so saturated with artificial light that the Milky Way is invisible. For the first time in our species' history, the majority of people will live and die without ever seeing the true depth of the cosmos that once guided every aspect of life. Organizations like the International Dark Sky Association frame this not just as an environmental issue, but as a profound human rights issue, the right to experience our universal heritage. The stars that told farmers when to plant, that inspired myths of gods and heroes, that gave sailors their bearings and philosophers their wonder, are vanishing behind a veil of our own making. This loss is not merely aesthetic, it is a neurological and cultural deprivation. Studies in environmental psychology suggest that regular exposure to a star-filled sky reduces stress and fosters a sense of awe and perspective, a feeling of being part of something vast. By flooding our nights with light, we are not just hiding stars, we are dimming a fundamental part of our own psychological landscape, the very sense of wonder that drove our ancestors to build in stone. The practical impact is equally stark. Modern professional astronomy is forced to launch billion-dollar telescopes into space to escape the glow, while amateur stargazers, the direct descendants of those ancient sky watchers, must travel hundreds of miles to find a patch of true darkness. But the most poignant loss is to our understanding of the past. To stand at Chaco Canyon today and try to see what its builders saw is nearly impossible. The same light pollution that obscures the stars also obscures our empathy, our ability to truly see through their eyes. This has sparked a global movement to protect not just the ancient stones, but the ancient sky above them. There are now concerted efforts to designate areas around sacred sites like Stonehenge, Chaco Canyon, and the Big Horn Medicine Wheel as official dark sky preserves. The goal is to create protective buffers, zones where lighting is strictly controlled to preserve the celestial conditions for which these places were designed. It is a radical idea, protecting the view. One of the most beautiful frameworks for this is the Starlight Initiative, launched by UNESCO and other international bodies. It designates starlight reserves, areas recognized for the exceptional quality of their night skies. These reserves protect both astronomical observation and the intangible cultural heritage linked to the stars, from indigenous navigation traditions to the legacy of the ancient alignments themselves. To stand in such a place is to experience a form of time travel, to see the sky not as a blank void, but as the active, populated, and meaningful theater our ancestors knew. It forces a difficult question upon us. What does it mean for our species if we become permanently disconnected from the night sky? If the great cosmic story that once unified cultures becomes invisible, what replaces that shared sense of place in the universe? Our brightly lit world offers connection of a different kind, a digital network that spans the globe, yet it is a network we built and control. The ancient sky offered a connection to something unquestionably larger, a humbling and unifying force. Efforts to reclaim dark skies are not about turning off progress, but about finding balance, about preserving windows to that older, deeper reality. They remind us that our heritage is not just in the ground beneath our feet, but in the expanse above our heads. Yet, even if we successfully shield the sky view, the sites themselves face a more terrestrial and relentless threat, one that comes not from light, but from the countless feet of those who come to witness what remains. The same sunlight that illuminates a sacred alignment also warms the shoulders of thousands of visitors, their collective footsteps a quiet, constant pressure on the ancient stones beneath. This is the modern paradox of preservation. We yearn to witness these cosmic wonders firsthand, to stand where an ancient astronomer stood, but our very presence, magnified by millions each year, becomes the greatest threat to their survival. These sites exist in a fragile balance between being global heritage, owned in a sense by all humanity, and remaining living, sacred spaces for the descendant communities who maintain a spiritual lineage to them. The director of a UNESCO World Heritage Center recently noted that we must manage not just the stone, but the expectation, recognizing that unlimited access is a recipe for irreversible loss. The pressures are both immediate and slow-moving. At Machu Picchu, the debate over daily visitor caps is intense. Each footstep on the precisely fitted granite stairs, each hand resting on a ceremonial wall for a photograph, contributes to imperceptible wear. The quest for the perfect vista leads tourists off marked paths, eroding the very soil that stabilizes the terraces and alters the sight lines the Inca so carefully engineered. The solution is not to lock these places away, but to reimagine access. Some sites now employ virtual reality stations at visitor centers, allowing people to experience a solstice alignment or explore a restricted chamber digitally, reducing physical traffic without diminishing wonder. Advanced, non-invasive technology like vibration sensors and thermal cameras monitor structural health, detecting subtle shifts from nearby traffic or underground water changes before they become catastrophic. Yet tourism is only one facet of a larger threat. The climate that has cradled these sites for millennia is now changing around them. Venice, a city whose grand piazzas and canals are oriented to the Adriatic sun and stars, is sinking. The rising Aqua Alta floods not just streets, but the very foundations of its historic structures, threatening to dissolve the alignment between architecture, water, and light. For coastal sites worldwide, from the cliffside monasteries of Greece to the ceremonial platforms of Polynesia, rising sea levels and intensifying storms pose an existential risk. potentially washing away millennia of celestial coding in a single violent surge. Even the air itself can be an agent of decay. Increased carbon dioxide leads to more acidic rain, which slowly dissolves limestone and marble, blurring the crisp edges of aligned doorways and carved glyphs. In desert regions, more frequent and severe droughts followed by flash floods can undercut foundations, causing sudden collapses. The vibration from a new highway miles away can, over years, subtly shift a standing stone at Stonehenge, throwing an alignment perfected over generations off by a fatal degree. These are not hypotheticals, they are current crises documented by conservation teams. The response requires a partnership of ancient wisdom and modern science. In many regions, indigenous advocates are leading the call for co-management plans. This means descendant communities have a decisive voice in how sites are studied, interpreted, and visited. A Maori elder in New Zealand might explain that a certain stone is not merely a calendar marker, but an ancestor, and thus should not be touched or climbed upon. A Hopi cultural advisor might determine the appropriate times for ceremonial closure of a sacred mesa. This shift from pure archaeology to ethical stewardship acknowledges that these places are not just relics of the past, but active participants in living cultures. It asks a difficult, personal question of each potential visitor. When we travel to these sites, what is our true intention? Are we consumers checking a wonder off a list, or are we learners approaching with humility and a commitment to minimize our impact? Responsible tourism might mean visiting in the off-season, staying on marked paths, refusing to touch fragile surfaces, and choosing guides from local communities who share deeper stories. It means understanding that our privilege to visit carries a direct responsibility to protect. The future of these alignments depends on a new kind of alignment itself, a harmony between our curiosity and our conscience, between global interest and local guardianship. If we succeed, we preserve not just stones, but the ongoing human conversation with the cosmos that they represent. This conversation, however, is no longer confined to temples and solstices. The same fundamental drive to build in harmony with universal principles is re-emerging in our own time, not in carved granite, but in glass, steel, and a new vision of ecological balance. From the silent orbit of a satellite, the Great Pyramids are not monuments, but pinpricks of geometry. The Nazca lines resolve from cryptic scratches into vast, purposeful diagrams. This is the new vantage point of space archaeology, a field that uses the eyes of orbiters to see what the Earthbound cannot. Satellites equipped with multispectral sensors peer through sand and jungle canopy, revealing the ghostly outlines of forgotten cities and ceremonial avenues. They map not just single sites, but entire sacred landscapes, showing how temples, tombs, and processional roads were woven into a unified, astronomically aligned grid across hundreds of miles. We are discovering that what we thought were isolated wonders are often nodes in a vast, intelligent network, a planetary tapestry of alignment we are only now beginning to read from above. This cosmic perspective inevitably turns outward. If our ancient impulse was to build in conversation with our home star and its companion moon, what happens when humanity's home becomes more than one world? Carl Sagan once dreamed of a future monument on Mars, a structure aligned not only to the Martian solstice but also to the Earth, hanging blue and distant in the pink sky. It would be a testament to a species that carries its cosmic curiosity with it. Architects and visionaries have sketched concepts for lunar habitats or Martian colonies that incorporate such dual alignments. A central dome might be oriented so that on the anniversary of the first human landing, Earth rises in a specific viewport. A solar corridor might be designed to catch the light of a Martian equinox, marking the year on a new world while honoring an old terrestrial tradition. This is more than nostalgia. It is about rooting human identity in a cosmic context, using the universal language of celestial mechanics to maintain a sense of place and time across the staggering void. This outward gaze also reshapes one of our grandest scientific quests, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, or SETI. For decades, scientists have listened for radio signals, the whispers of technology. But some, like physicist Freeman Dyson, suggested we might also look for physical signatures, megastructures built by advanced civilizations, an alien culture, driven by its own version of the alignment impulse, might construct something that periodically dims its star in a geometric pattern, or builds a vast orbital ring in a precise, stable alignment. We are, in a sense, looking for the ultimate archaeoastronomical site, a monument in another star system whose design declares, through physics and geometry, intelligence was here. On a more practical scale, as we contemplate travel between stars, ancient knowledge finds a startlingly modern echo. Polynesian navigators crossed thousands of miles of open ocean using star compasses, memorizing the rising and setting points of hundreds of stars. For a future interstellar craft lost in the featureless dark between suns, a similar concept emerges, a galactic positioning system. It would not rely on satellites, but on the fixed, predictable positions of pulsars, the rapidly spinning corpses of dead stars that emit beams of radiation like cosmic lighthouses. By timing the pulses from multiple pulsars, a ship could triangulate its position anywhere in the galaxy. It is the same principle that guided a stone circle builder watching the horizon, just scaled to a galactic plane. This forward vision circles back to a timeless question. What is the core of this human need to align ourselves with the heavens? Is it purely practical, a tool for survival that becomes ritual? Is it spiritual, a longing to touch the infinite? Or is it something more fundamental, an aesthetic and intellectual drive to find order, pattern, and meaning in the chaos of existence? As we stand on the brink of becoming a multi-planet species, this ancient trait may be one of the most human things we take with us. Our future monuments, whether on the red plains of Mars or in the data streams of a virtual world, will likely still seek a fixed point in the turning sky, a way to say, in whatever language we speak then, that we are here and we are part of this. Inside a modern planetarium, the hushed awe is palpable. Children and adults alike tilt their heads back, their faces bathed in the soft glow of projected stars, their posture identical to that of an ancient astronomer standing on a windswept plain. This shared gesture of wonder points to something deep within us, a fundamental thread in the human psyche that compels us to look up and seek meaning. Beyond the practical calendars and political theater, the drive to align our world with the heavens may be rooted in the very architecture of our minds. Cognitive scientists point to two powerful, innate biases. The first is hyperactive pattern recognition. Our brains are wired to find connections, to turn random noise into narrative. A scattering of stars becomes a bear, a hunter, a canoe. A line of stones pointing to a sunrise is not a coincidence, it is a message. The second is agency detection. When we see complex, powerful, and regular phenomena like the precise journey of the sun, we instinctively attribute it to a mindful agent, a will behind the motion. The sky doesn't just move, it acts. It becomes a conscious, watching presence. This combination creates a potent psychological cocktail. The ordered sky suggests a cosmic mind, and our ordered monuments become a form of conversation with it. The German theologian Rudolf Otto described the feeling evoked by such overwhelming power as the numinous, a sense of the holy other that is both terrifying and fascinating. The silent, majestic turn of the stars is the ultimate numinous experience. Building a temple that captures a ray of that celestial power is an attempt to domesticate the awe, to build a bridge across the chasm between the human and the infinite. By creating a small, predictable piece of cosmic order here on Earth, a shaft of light that arrives on schedule, we reduce the existential anxiety of a vast, indifferent universe. It gives us a sense of place, a fixed point in the cosmos. This quest for order manifests in two great streams of human thought. Ancient cultures practiced what scholars call mythopoeic thought, where the world is explained through story, symbol, and divine will. Aligning a temple to Venus was a way to participate in the goddess's story, to ensure her favor and maintain the rhythm of life. Our modern world operates with scientific cosmology, where we seek explanation through mathematics, physics, and observation. Yet the impulse is parallel. Pointing a radio telescope like the Very Large Array toward a distant galaxy is also an act of alignment. We are orienting our most sophisticated architecture to listen for a whisper from the void, seeking connection and understanding on a different, but no less profound, level. Both the priest and the astrophysicist are answering the same deep call to find our coordinates in the grand scheme. So when you next find yourself under a clear night sky, pause for a moment. Ask yourself what you feel. Is it loneliness, or is it a sense of belonging to something magnificent? Are you looking for a spiritual sign, an intellectual puzzle, or simply the quiet comfort of beauty? Your answer is your own search for alignment, your personal attempt to find resonance between your inner world and the outer cosmos. This timeless human conversation with the heavens is not locked in the past. It is alive today, waiting for anyone willing to step outside, look up, and engage with the oldest mystery of all. Your phone's screen glows with a map, not of roads, but of ancient stones and celestial paths. An app highlights a nearby ring of standing stones you've driven past a dozen times, and for the first time, it tells you their secret. This coming Saturday at dawn, the rising sun will spear directly through the center of the circle. This isn't just data, it's an invitation. You can step out of the role of a distant viewer and become a direct witness to the ancient conversation between earth and sky. The first step is simply knowing when and where to look. Websites like the Megalithic Portal and apps like Sun Surveyor or PhotoPills are modern versions of the astronomer priest's tools. They use your phone's GPS and precise astronomical algorithms to show you exactly where the sun, moon, or stars will rise and set from any location on Earth, on any date, past or present. You can stand in your backyard and point your phone to the horizon to see where the summer solstice sun will appear, or you can plan a trip to a known site with perfect foreknowledge of the celestial event. For a curated list of publicly accessible sites with dramatic alignments, organizations like the International Dark Sky Association and various national heritage bodies provide guides. You might discover that a state park an hour's drive away contains a Native American petroglyph that is illuminated only on the spring equinox, or that a local medieval church is famously oriented to catch the Easter sunrise. Don't overlook your local astronomy club either. These groups often host special Archaeoastronomy nights at historical sites where members bring telescopes and laser pointers to trace the celestial alignments and share the stories behind them. It's a wonderful way to learn alongside passionate experts. If you decide to make a pilgrimage to a major site, a little planning transforms the trip from a tourist outing into a profound experience. Travel writers who specialize in historical journeys advise checking not just the celestial date, but the local weather patterns. Dawn in early June might be clear in theory, but if your chosen site is in a region known for morning fog, you could miss the moment entirely. Amateur astronomers suggest arriving at least an hour before the predicted event. Your eyes need time to adjust to the low light, and you'll want to find the perfect vantage point without rushing. Bring a simple magnetic compass to verify the cardinal directions yourself, and dress in layers. Standing still in the pre-dawn chill is part of the ritual. Some of the most powerful alignments to witness are also the most accessible. At Stonehenge, the summer solstice sunrise gathering allows public access directly into the stone circle, a rare and moving privilege. At Chichen Itza, thousands gather each equinox to watch the Serpent of Light descend the pyramid. In Orkney, Scotland, you can enter the chambered tomb of Meso to see the winter solstice sunset light up its back wall. Perhaps the most poignant example is the experience at Newgrange in Ireland. Access to the inner chamber during the winter solstice sunrise is granted through an annual lottery, with tens of thousands applying for a handful of spots. One family who won described the hushed anticipation inside the 5,000-year-old tomb. As the first sliver of dawn appeared, a thin, golden beam of light crept slowly down the long passageway, exactly as the builders designed, until it illuminated the ancient carved stones in the heart of the mound. They spoke of a silence filled not with emptiness but with a powerful sense of connection across time. You don't need to win a lottery or fly across an ocean to participate, however. The most meaningful connection can begin at home. Try a simple DIY project that echoes the ancients. On the day of the equinox, use a vertical stick in a level patch of ground. Mark the tip of its shadow every hour. The arc you trace will show the sun's path, and the shortest shadow will point due north. You can align a garden bench, a bird bath, or even a window in your home to catch the first light on your birthday, creating your own personal solar marker. The goal isn't perfection, but participation. By intentionally marking a celestial event, however modestly, you join the long human tradition of seeking rhythm in the heavens. So, what small act of alignment could you introduce into your own life? Could you note where the sun sets from your kitchen window on the first day of each season? Could you visit a local historic site on the day it was designed to be seen? This hands-on engagement does more than satisfy curiosity. It begins to reshape your perception of place and time, moving you from learning about history to momentarily living within its intended rhythm. And when you stand in that field at dawn or watch that shadow touch your garden stone, you become part of the data point. You are no longer just studying a pattern, you are feeling its pulse. This collective, global pulse of alignment, witnessed by individuals across continents, points toward a final, unifying question about the story these stones are telling. The Nile's pyramids, Britain's stone circles, and the Andes' terraced cities share no common blueprint, no shared architect whispering across the continents. They are expressions of cultures as distinct as the landscapes they inhabit. Yet, when we map their intentions against the sky, a breathtaking unity emerges. This drive to align our greatest works with the cosmos is not an anomaly of a single genius culture, but a fundamental thread in the fabric of human history, woven independently across time and space. Historian Felipe Fernandez Armesto describes this as a kind of convergent evolution in human culture. Isolated societies, gazing up at the same overwhelming sky, arrived at similar profound conclusions. They each recognized that to build something permanent, something meaningful, it must resonate with the universal order above. The specific answers varied wildly, shaped by local stone, local gods, and local needs. The Egyptians sought linear perfection, their pyramids acting as ramps to the imperishable stars. The builders of Stonehenge embraced the circle, embedding solar and lunar cycles into a communal landscape. The Inca saw no division between architecture and nature, carving observatories and sacred sightlines directly into the living rock of the mountains. These are not copies of a single idea, but independent compositions on a shared theme, like musicians in different corners of the world, each composing a symphony in the same key. Consider another great cognitive leap, the invention of writing. It emerged independently in Mesopotamia, China, and Mesoamerica. These systems look nothing alike, their symbols and purposes shaped by unique cultures. Yet they all answer the same deep human need to record, to communicate across time, to make thought permanent. Celestial alignment is a parallel invention, a different but equally profound form of notation. Instead of marking clay or paper, They marked the earth itself with shadows and stones, writing their understanding of time and divinity directly into the landscape. This was not the work of a single lost teacher civilization seeding the globe. The evidence points to a more powerful and in many ways more beautiful truth. It is the story of human ingenuity flowering again and again in isolation, a testament to our shared capacity for observation, pattern recognition, and awe. Each culture, from the desert to the jungle to the tundra, developed its own sophisticated dialogue with the heavens, creating a unique architectural language to express a universal feeling. This realization prompts a deeper curiosity. If the alignment with the sky is one such fundamental human universal, what others are waiting to be recognized? What other deep-seated impulses, perhaps in art, in social structure, in our relationship with the natural world, have we expressed in wonderfully diverse ways across the globe, all pointing to a common core of human experience? The stones tell us that long before global trade or the internet connected us, we were already linked by a shared gaze upward, by a common desire to find our place in the grand narrative written in light. This global chorus of aligned monuments forms a powerful legacy, not of a single truth, but of a shared human question. And that legacy now speaks directly to us, asking not what we can learn about them, but what their silent, steadfast alignment might teach us about navigating our own place in a rapidly changing world. That tapestry of reasons is the true legacy of the stones. They were not built for a single purpose, but as multi-layered instruments of human experience. A farmer saw a calendar, a priest saw a divine pathway, a ruler saw a throne of light, and a philosopher saw a model of universal order. All were correct. The alignment was a single, brilliant solution to a multitude of human needs, a way to anchor a society in time, in faith, and in the cosmos simultaneously. This is why they resonate so powerfully with us today, even as we live by the glow of digital clocks. They speak to the totality of what it means to be human, to need food, to seek the sacred, to crave order, and to long for connection with something greater than ourselves. These structures are perhaps our species' most eloquent collective statement, written not in words but in geometry and light. They declare that we are here, we are watching, and we are trying to understand our role in the grand performance. So the next time you see a sunrise, pause for just a moment. See it not just as the start of another day, but as a cosmic event that has been meticulously observed, celebrated, and built upon for thousands of generations. That light on the horizon is the same light that illuminated the inner chamber of Newgrange, that crept down the pyramid at Chichen Itza, and that was caught by the hitching post of the sun at Machu Picchu. You are part of that same unbroken chain of witnesses. We would love to hear what part of this celestial story resonated most with you. Was it the patient genius of the builders, the sacred theater of the alignments, or the simple, profound connection to the sky? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to join us as we continue exploring the great enigmas of history, be sure to subscribe. The past is filled with whispers, and together we can learn to listen.